Good afternoon, and welcome to our quarterly presentation of quarter four and the full year results of 2022. My name is Birgir Jónsson, and I'm the CEO of PLAY. And together with Ólafur Þór Jóhannsson, our CFO, I will go over our highlights, financial results, and then the outlook of our business. We are coming out of an interesting year, quite a challenging year. We see some very positive signs in our business, but nonetheless, we are delivering a loss that is slightly worse than we had anticipated, but still more or less in line with our managerial expectations. And I'm also very happy to report, and I will show it more clearly later, that the many negative points that we reported in the last quarterly presentation have now turned into a positive, and we are seeing very positive trends in our revenue generation. But focusing on our year, last year, we had 6 aircraft in operation, and actually 6 aircraft from last spring when we launched the US operation, which was a massively transformational event for the company. It was so much more complicated than just flying point to point, and that was a massive achievement for us last year to be able to launch that network. We flew 800,000 passengers last year, which was in line with our anticipation and guidance, actually. We served 25 destinations on both sides of the Atlantic, and we reached an 87% on-time performance, which again is absolutely world-class, especially when you consider that we are a very new company and basically working a new network on a transatlantic hub and spoke model. 87% is absolutely perfect, I would say. Our load factor also quite acceptable, 80%, 79.7%, which is something that we see growing, but still quite acceptable for the year. The split of passengers, we had 34% Viet passengers or passengers that only stop in Iceland for 1 or 2 hours before they go from the US to Europe. 36% of Icelandic people, basically from passengers going abroad, and tourists to Iceland or to passengers were 30% of our traffic. And since we started operation, and it's important to keep in mind that this company is only 1.5 years old, really, since we started our flight operations, we've seen our load factors grow quite significantly by 21 percentage points, and delivering us into this 80% load factor throughout the year. And we already see that growing and are quite confident that we are onto something, and it's a good basically a sign and a KPI of how well our sales and marketing and distribution efforts are going on all our markets, that we were able to achieve this load factor in our first year of operation. Similarly, and what has been our maybe problem was that we have been our revenue base has been immature, and we are already now seeing that grow. Our unit revenue is growing, and we're seeing basically on an adjusted basis an 18% growth in revenue per seat kilometer. And that's another KPI or another metric that we see growing into the future and already seeing a sign of that. And it's interesting to put that in context with the added capacity, because we are not sinking the market in extra capacity and lowering the prices. We are seeing the unit price grow as we are seeing our capacity increase, and basically the ask being quite significantly increased into the market. So that kind of gives us a sign that our business model is working, and our general approach to the market is solid. Again, I spoke about the OTP, the on-time performance, and if we break it into quarters, this is again quite impressive, especially when you go into quarter four, which is the winter months here in Iceland, and we have had a very heavy winter. And winter operation in a hub and spoke system where you can really are very sensitive to delays and cancellations. This is a massive achievement for our operational crews and technical people, and I really want to take this opportunity to give them all the all the respect and kudos in the world, because this is not something that is to be taken for granted. If we try to look at the market share that we achieved and won last year, maybe the first thing I want to point out is that we have been extremely well received in our local market, and 25 to sometimes 35% of our local market has chosen Play. And if we consider that we are a very new company, this is our first year, we have about 30 airlines flying to and from Iceland. To be able to achieve that in the first year is a massively impressive achievement. We have about 16% of total movements in and out of Keflavík Airport, our home airport, and that is also something that we will see grow in the coming years. What we have not been as successful in doing, at least in last year, but I'm very happy to be able to show you a positive trend in that also later, is basically the share of tube traffic, or basically tourists coming to Iceland. And we spoke about that in our last presentation, that was especially troublesome for us in Q3, where we were not able to get as big a share of the two market cake as we would have wanted. We mentioned something about that Iceland, the tourism industry in Iceland was sold out. It was difficult to get hotels and car rentals, and basically shortages in land capacity, but also our ground packages, and also a bigger share of vouchers or prepaid COVID-related vouchers that people were using to travel to Iceland. And again, this is something that we see reversing, and is something that gives us confidence that we are on the right track. Another thing that all companies should be keeping in mind, and all consumers, is the CO2 emission and basically our carbon footprint. And it's good to see that has been decreasing in our operation, something that we find extremely important as a company. We feel that our staff is thinking about this, and absolutely the modern consumer is taking this into account. And by increasing the seats in our aircraft, and we are taking our 321 fleet and increasing those seats up to 214 per aircraft, we are basically reducing the carbon emission even further. And that's something that is really important, because there is a trend within Europe already that companies are beginning to think about if they choose a business class product for their staff and employees that are traveling, because a business class seat emits relatively more CO2 than an economy class seat, and that simply does not comply with the sustainability journey or sustainability commitment that the bigger companies in Europe are committed to. And I think that we are perfectly positioned to profit from this trend, because people, especially in the short-haul routes that we fly, will turn away from using business class products. It's also good for us to take stock at the end of the year and basically recognize that we have been awarded some very significant awards and honors in the last year, and we have just listed up a few of them here just to keep it on file, so to speak. And talking about sustainability, we had our first real annual report and sustainability report last year, and we're extremely honored and surprised, I have to say, to be awarded the sustainability report of the year here in Iceland, and that gives us great encouragement to keep on going on that journey. And there's a lot of ambition here within our company to keep going on that track. Similarly, for the second year running, we were awarded the Equality Scale from the Association of Business Leaders here in Iceland, and basically confirming that the culture that we are cultivating here and take so much time and pride in working on, where people should be included and they should feel valued and basically happy at work, is something that has been recognized by an external body. Then we were awarded the Startup Airline of the Year by CAPA, which is a very respected international association in aviation, as the Startup of the Year. And some people might say, okay, there's not too many airlines that have been commencing operations in the last months or year. But the fact is that since the beginning of COVID, if that's some kind of a time point to consider, there have been around 25 to 30 airlines of all sizes in the world that have started operation. And for us to be chosen by a team of experts and specialists in the field was a real encouragement for us and a massive honor. And this was chosen by specialists, and then we can go to the next one, which is the Icelandic Satisfaction Scale, which is basically voted for by Icelandic consumers, whereby they are asked what is the airline that they are most satisfied with. And again, we came first in that category out of a lot of airlines that are flying to Iceland, and in the face of some very strong local competition, and to be able to do that in the first year is something that it made our day when that happened, and we are very proud of that, and we thank the market and our customers for that. And last but not least, we were awarded as the youngest fleet, the airline that has the youngest fleet in Europe. Again, which has a massive implication on our carbon emission, on our technical and maintenance cost, and basically helping us to maintain this great on-time performance, because that's a good measure that measures the effectiveness of our operation. Is that we have basically the best aircraft that you can get in the market, the Airbus 320neo family. And that's kind of my overview of last year. I want to welcome Ólafur, our CFO, who will take us through our financial performance and the numbers for last year, and that I will then come back here later and talk to you about the outlook and the state of the market as we see it for the coming year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Birgir. In 2022, we had both blue skies and challenging times, as can be seen in this slide. In the next slides, I will go in more details into each number that can be seen in this slide. The revenues in the fourth quarter were almost 4 times higher than in the fourth quarter 21. That was mainly driven by higher capacity and improving loading factor throughout the year. The EBIT was negative by 17.6 million in the fourth quarter and was slightly behind our expectation for the same period. And the main factor that was affecting the negative gap between our expectation and the actual number was the weather disruptions in December that was affect the total with total impacts of 2.2 million in the quarter, both in lost revenues and additional cost items. We had our cost, or as we call it, CASK ex fuel, in line with target for the whole year. To the balance sheet, we had 36 million in cash on our balance sheet at year end. We had share capital increase of 60 million during the period, and as before, we have no external interest-bearing debt on our balance sheet. To the income statement, we had new revenue streams in the fourth quarter. We had cargo revenue and other revenue amounting to 1.2 million in the period. we had total revenue of 140 million compared to 60 million from previous year. And as before, the fuel cost is accounting for the largest part of our operating expenses, amounting to 38%, and is affecting us heavily between years. And we had 32 million higher cost in the year 2022 than was expected in the beginning of the year due to the Ukraine war. Other items in the income statement were depreciation and financial expenses that were heavily impacted by the additional aircraft in 2022. And there were 3 more aircraft than in the beginning of the year. The net results for the period were 45.5 million loss compared to 22.5 million in the previous year. To the operating income, we had RASK increase between years from 3.4 to 4.8 cents per ASK, and we had 6% increase in the average yield between years. But we have to bear in mind that we have a different situation between the years. We had different mix of passengers between years because we had traffic, it started in the middle of the year 2022. But we can see that we have positive trend in ancillary revenues in the fourth quarter. We had sales effort and non-land bundles that is expected to trend positively in the future. To the operating expenses, as mentioned before, we reached our target of being under 4 in the RASK calculations for the last 2 quarters of the year, and in total we were 4.0 in the CASK calculations. That is a huge decrease between years. Total assets amount to 330 million at year end compared to 204 in the beginning. The main difference between years is explained by the 3 aircraft during the year. And for your information, 4 aircraft will be added in the first half of this year, with an estimated impact of between 160 and 180 million on the balance sheet. We have a stable financial position and a healthy cash position. It is our opinion. We have cash in the balance sheet that amounts to 26% of rolling 12 months revenues. And we had positive development in the working capital, as can be seen in the cash flow statements here in the next slide. And 11.6% equity ratio, or 36% if we correct it without the lease agreements, or as we call it, non-IFRS 16 basis. To the cash flow. The cash flow, we had negative cash flow from operation amounting to 20 million for the whole year, and that consists of operating activities, EBITDA, changes in working capital, and repayment of lease liabilities. We increased our share capital by 16 million in the fourth quarter, and we had investing activities amounting to 10.6. All this sums up in a cash position, 36.2. Thereof, we have 6.6 in restricted cash. Regarding the fuel, extreme volatility in recent weeks. We have seen the fuel prices rises and dropped heavily between days and weeks. And that is, of course, impacting our income statement for the year. As mentioned in before we had extra 32 million expenses in this year compared to our initial assumptions in the beginning of the year. The current spot price now, or yesterday, was 9.39, the Platts price, and we changed or extended our hedge strategy for the fuel purchases, and we have slightly above 40% of estimated fuel consumptions for next 2 quarters hedged at a fixed price, 9.80 and 8.79, and slightly above 32% in the third quarter, and at a price 9.51. So that's all for me, and over to you, Birgir, again.
Thank you, Ólafur. As we heard from Ólafur, we were quite heavily hit by increased fuel prices over the last year, and that made our problem of immature revenue basis even bigger. I think that we would have dramatically different results if oil prices would have been stable last year, but that's how life is. You cannot spend your time looking in the rearview mirror too much, which is why I'm going to go into the future. And I want to show you that the year is starting really well for us. We can see that just the monthly sales now in January, of course not only flown in January, but this is future flights also, is a record month for us, and basically confirming that our network, our destination, and our mix of network planning, let's say, is functioning really well, and we are absolutely seeing the market responding to that, and that gives us confidence that because we have been very successful in keeping our cost in line, increased revenue, and especially unit revenue, will deliver us good results and a very let's say better year than we just closed. And I want to mention a few things that we talked about in the last quarterly presentation that was a problem for us then, that were negative, and basically show how we have been able to reverse those trends. First of that is the TOU traffic, or basically tourists selecting to fly to Iceland. That's really what is driving our growth now. It confirms that we are becoming more mature in the market. We are becoming a trusted brand. We're basically becoming more established. So the market is trusting us and selecting us. It's also good to see the red line there, the from traffic, which is continued success with our local market, and of course the via traffic, which is of course great also, but it has to be said that we want to use it as a filler, especially in terms of the summer. The margin and the unit revenue comes from, or the increased unit revenue comes from point to point, while the via traffic is basically driving down costs and keeping the lights on, so to speak. But it's really important for us to keep the mix correct, and that is really what was slightly skewed last year. So it's good to see that we're seeing the TOU traffic come online for us. And if we look at basically how the booking position now is for the next year, if we just take the red the red graph, and that's kind of the same time point last year, and then the black or whatever it is shows you the situation now. We're seeing quite a stronger booking position into the year, and this is excluding travel agents or tour operators. This is just individuals booking online. And again, even though we have like 240% more asks or seat kilometers in the market, we are still seeing that we're seeing a rise in load factor and in booking activity. And if we look at the travel trade, because I mentioned that specifically in the last presentation, and we were kind of thinking about then that perhaps we were a new player in the market. People or these travel agents didn't trust us. They had already made plans for the year ahead, because these are companies that work quite quite far in advance, and also they had already prepaid or pre-booked vouchers or because of COVID, we can see that this is also dramatically different, so much more healthy and more normal, and again gives us great confidence that we are beginning to see a real traction in the market. And the vast majority of these bookings are incoming tour operators. So this is quite a stable market. Usually specialists that have been selling Iceland for many years, and it's very important for us to be established in that market and gain the trust of that market. And it's great to see that happening. And another thing that we were not successful, especially last summer, was the ancillary revenue. And this is showing basically the sales at the airport. Because what was happening, and this is maybe especially pertinent to the US market, is that those passengers booked their flights on OTAs, let's use Expedia for example, and in those booking engines, they are not able to select seats or extra bags or stuff like that. So they book their flights, they come to the airport, and because of COVID-related issues, the handling agents and the staff at the airport are inundated with new airlines. They are undertrained, they are new because of staffing issues. We did not have the capacity to charge for these products. So people were basically walking through with bags and that they hadn't booked because they, in all fairness, they couldn't do it online. And now after the summer season, we have been quite successful in raising these kind of unit revenues or this revenue stream. And this is in close cooperation with our handling agents. And also because we have been investing in digital solutions. And I put there on the screen a screenshot from our handheld device that all our handling agents and staff are using in the airport. So it's really easy for them to meet the passengers, see what their needs are, have they already paid for the cabin bag or their seats or whatever, and basically charge them at the point of the gate or at the check-in or whatever. So this is really something that, as you can see in the graph, is driving our revenue and will continue to do so in the year. Another thing that has been in development for us for a number of months, I would say 6 to 8 months, is these bundles. And this is a much more complicated project than it might look, especially on this friendly screen. Basically, it means that when you book your flight in our booking engine, you can select a bundle, basically a package, where you have your seat, your bag, your whatever you need, priority boarding, or if you want to go into a more expensive package, you can have flexibility on your travel and these kind of premium products. So you can basically, for your convenience, buy one package and you have the whole thing just in the bag, so to speak, and you're ready to go. And if you don't want that, you can choose the basic bundle or the basic price and either fly with nothing or you can add on what you really need later. So again, this means that our ancillary revenue at the point of booking or in our booking engine has dramatically increased. And again, when we are talking about the increase in revenue, we're not just dreaming it, we are basically basing it on something that we have invested in, and we are already seeing the trend developing in a very positive manner. Another thing was cargo revenue. Again, this is a COVID issue. Our handling agents and at the airport, and some of us have chosen to forget what the situation was at the airports in Europe last year and in the US, of course, also. But we were not able to start our cargo operation in the summer because of basically what I said before, just the capacity at the airport, the new handling agents, the shortage of staff. But as soon as the summer is over, we are up and running, and we can see a very healthy growth in these numbers. And again, this is basically the revenue generated below wing is really important to us, and it's good to see that happening. And so this is basically our network now for the year. We will have 36 at least destinations. And again, just for those of you that are seeing this for the first time, we are linking the US and North America to Europe. We introduced a new destination in Toronto. Hamilton Airport in Toronto has been going great and really something that we seem to have hit out of the park once again. So this is the network that will drive our business this year, and already we're seeing some very, very healthy booking activity based on this map of destinations. And these are just pretty pictures of some of our new destinations. But again, underlying all these destinations is serious consideration if this is a connecting via destination, if this is a point-to-point leisure destination, basically how we select and choose to design our network to optimize the utilization of our crews and our aircraft, and of course the seasonal fluctuations in demand in the market. And we have sometimes, and that's a clear need for a listed company, to give some kind of a guidance, and it's good to do that now in the beginning of the year, how we see this year progressing. And of course, like Ólafur said before, we are in a highly fluctuating and volatile market, and fuel prices is something that is really controlling what we're doing. But we want to set forth some kind of a scenario, but we also want to be very clear, as we saw very clearly in the last year. This is of course based on external factors and what happens in the world politics, world economic situation, fuel prices, and basically this is our best guess of how we see our business developing in the year. We are increasing our capacity or the ask by about 100% this year. So it's a very significant growth in the business. We will see 1.5 to 1.7 million passengers this year, going up from 800,000 last year. So it's a very significant growth. And like I have been trying to demonstrate, we continue to see positive development in load factor and yield. So we want to see the continuing development of our revenue. That has been our problem. And our cost is very competitive. We've been extremely successful in driving that down. Now we need to see the revenue grow. And like I did show you on the previous slides, we're already beginning to see that happening in a very significant manner. And this is something that we see continuing. We anticipate positive EBIT for the year based on the uncertainness of the external environment. We don't want to be too more more specific than that, but we are positive that and let's say cautiously optimistic that we are heading into the first year that we will see a positive EBIT for the year. And we base this on an average fuel price of about $940 Platts, or basically per ton. So that's basically how we see things progressing. And of course we will update it as it changes. I want to also mention that if there are questions, and I know that it's been put here on a few times up on the screen, please send your questions to ir@flyplay.com, and we will answer them in writing, and we will put it on our website before noon tomorrow. So that kind of gives everyone the chance to see the questions and the answers in writing, and we have a good documentation of it. So to sum things up, we are closing a challenging year. We see some very significant increases in price of jet fuel, and that is really the thing that has put us off track, even though we see some very positive things happening in our revenue and unit cost. We are positive for the year, like I just said, despite the macroeconomic outlook. But again, we are also subject to that. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on. We see some very strong sales momentum for the year. It's maybe strange how good it is, but we are very happy. And we basically see this positive development in our revenue base continuing into the year. And we expect to see a positive EBIT margin after the full year. And I think that kind of wrap things up for us, me and Ólafur. Send your questions, please, and we will do our best to answer them before noon tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing you when we present our next quarterly results. Thank you.